Hello, this is Ayumu and welcome to my seminar. This is the third video discussing that list from the Chile Grand Tour, in which today we'll talk about the second place list. If you missed out the previous videos, you can find it at the top right corner right now, or in the description below. Make sure to check it out after this video. So because I've been procrastinating so much, I am now recording this at 1:30 in the morning, so let's hope I don't wake my neighbor up. But so here we have the white Aggro list from the second place, Omar, Acuña. And I mean, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, white Aggro decks, not interesting at all, can we just be quick? I mean, I would like to think about that as well, but hey, I'm trying to make a deck explanation video, so I might as well try to be as detailed as possible. But obviously, unlike like the previous two deck lists, I'm not gonna go through the cards one by one, because by now, you should all know why the cards are in there. If they have full reductions, yeah, it's just because they're very good to summon out really cheaply, for some really quick attacks. But I suppose like we can try to discuss about some ratios. Having Map Butterfly in this deck is actually pretty interesting. Not a rare sight, of course. I know a lot of people do play Map Butterfly for like the exact reasons of playing the other green cards. So in this deck, we have one copy of Leaf Wolf and also two copies of From Prison. Some other decks might also play and Strike Back, but usually you will set that as a burst, would activate without paying the cost anyway. But maybe when you have enough reductions, then you just want to play from hand. I don't know. So like maybe like just pointing out some other noticeable cards. We have the two copies of Bullet Ray. It was a really good card for set 5 basically, and because like for really low cost, it has 5000 BP at only 2 costs, so like works really well. So like just to get over a lot of like higher BP spirits, but at this point, and also as you could have seen with like the previous two deck lists, a lot of the cards right now can also easily go into 5000 BP. So Bullet Ray just like kind of lost its uses already at one point, especially since, as I mentioned, as a white Aggro player, even if your opponent does have a 5000 BP spirit, you don't really want to crash into them with like a spirit of the same BP, because they can probably replenish their field really quickly. You cannot. So there's that. So like probably like the two copies of Bullet Ray in there is more like just in case you want a spirit that can go over like the average BP threshold. And we also have two copies of Saga. I assume it's also for the same reason, because if you try to attack it at level 2, which is usually the level that you're going to put her on anyway, she will get maximum 5000 BP. If you put it at level 3, 6000 BP, which is like pretty high for like the white Aggro deck. But again, like 5000 BP isn't exactly a high BP in this era, so like that's why probably the reason why. I'm not gonna assume a lot of things, but that is probably the reason why he only playing 2 copies of Saga. And then one copy of Leaf Wolf. You don't really have to explain much, just for like the surprise attacker, surprise blocker. Either way works. Doesn't really work well as a blocker. I tried using white Aggro in this past month or two, and I understand very much Leaf Wolf is really not the best blocker you can have there. But the good thing is, because of the switch, it does mean if you have the extra cost, you can summon Leaf Wolf in the opposite turn, which saves you the cost to summon another spirit during your own turn. So like that's a perk for having Swift. And then Curiosity, very obvious. You got a lot of mechas in this deck, so it helps protect them really much. I think what I'm really surprised is that he's only playing 3 copies of Pegasus, not 4. Because I think 4 really helps here. But I can see why, because Pegasus is still 3-1, so like most of the time it's like minimum 2 costs, and he's only really useful if it's a level 2 with a soul core on it, so you don't really want multiple copies of him on the field as well. So like you can argue that 4 copies might break your hand as like an aggressive player, so like 3 copies also still makes sense in this list. And then besides the 4 copies of Valkyrie Mist, we also have 2 copies of Valkyrie Hilda. He probably wants to focus more on balancing some spirits, because as we can see, he's also only playing 3 copies of Dream Bomb, not 4, because I know a lot of the white aggro list also play 4 copies of Dream Bomb, so just so that you have like more options in balancing opposing blockers. But ever since Hilda was released, that's an argument that like Hilda sometimes just better than Dream Bomb, because it literally does the same thing, but also you have one more spirit to attack or to block. And a lot of times when you're building white aggro, you just kind of want to wait the so between like the copies of Valkyrie Hilda and your copies of Dream Bomb. But I suppose, like as you guys probably have spotted already, the most interesting card in this list is probably this card, Warrior Monk Takara. You might ask, like, wow, this is a really interesting card to put in. But I think it should be obvious enough that it is for the Astro. So basically, instead of Derm Diner, some players choose to put Takara instead, because like Derm Diner is like very unstable right now, especially after 5 to 6 sets of cards. People already understand if they're facing white aggro, they're not going to place down any Nessuses, and so like Derm Diner will just become completely useless. So in this case, just throwing an Astral Spirit in would be way better. So that's why Takara is in here. You might ask, like, why not Smacer? Practically, there may be like a few reasons. One reason is definitely because Takara has like a higher level 1 BP, being 4,000. So that's just like barely escape the range of Burning Force. While for Smacer, if you want to avoid that, you're forced to put 3 costs on her. So that might not be too plausible in some cases, because like you can also do the math. So like you can see in this deck, there's no red reductions, no blue reductions. So we assume that with summoning spirits at full cost, Takara is 5 cost plus 1 core for 4,000 BP spirit. As Mesa needs 4 cores to summon, but if you want to escape the 3,000 BP threshold, you need 3 cores of Mesa. That will be a total of 7 cores. So 7 versus 6, that 1 core difference it can be a really big deal in white aggro decks. So like Takara might be better in these situations, but a bigger reason is like as I've asked another white aggro player, which is actually going to be the first place player. I asked them like, why aren't you playing Smacer? And then like they told me actually the main reason is because they haven't got it available in Latin America. Basically they couldn't find it. I suppose like it depends on like how you wanna try to use your cards. Like I can see like in practicality, like Takara kind of have the advantage here, but like at the same time, depending on how you want to use the cards, Mesa might also be better because it does destroy your spirit, and then it also refresh your cost. So like Mesa may be better, for example, during mirror games, because now you would actually have a spirit that can remove opposing spirits, which like greatly helps the balance if you're having a mirror game. And then like there can be another reason why you want to place Mesa, but I'll talk about that when we move on to the first place list. Yeah, spoilers alert, first place is also white aggro, but you should know this by now. You have seen the Twitter post from the official Battle Spirit Saga. So like, and then like just like quickly going through the magic cards, like very typical excuse me, 4 copies of Regain, 3 copies of Star Blast Draw, 2 copies of From Prison, and 3 copies of Dream Bomb. Just like very typical stuff that you'll see in white aggro. So like we should skip through that. Sideboard is definitely something that's more interesting to discuss about. We have 4 copies of Tin Soldiers. I can see why. Very good card. Just like as an attacker, as a blocker as well. Because just like the case that we had with Julius list, which is the Luster deck, Tin Soldiers being cost 0 with quite a massive BP of 5,000 can do quite a lot, especially in like an aggro deck. And it's also like I think like one of the other cost zeros that can attack a 1 core without like any other conditions, because like as like most of the cost zeros in this game need some kinds of like conditions to be able to attack. You got the first ones, which is like the elementals that needs 3 cost on them to be a level 2 to attack. And then you also have the Headless Pigeon, which requires you to destroy one of your spirits first. And so in this case, you can see why 10 soldiers would be better here. And some of you might argue that like why not then like maybe like 2 copies of Map Butterfly and then 2 copies of 10 soldier. And again, I think that what goes down to your preferences. Because like obviously 10 soldier has a higher BP and Map Butterfly doesn't. So like it depends on what you try to avoid. And I think the other reason is also because as you can see here, Omar, yes Omar, Omar is playing 2 copies of Lightning Arrow. So like it's a good chance for him to also put in some yellow spirits for the yellow reductions, just to play the Lightning Arrow more cheaply. And then we have 1 copy of the Diner basically for the people who aren't careful enough, or you know, just to catch them off guard. Because like you gotta admit there will be some decks who are forced to play Nessus. You know, like most of the control decks, you know, most of the Fable Beast decks, you know, they have to play Paradise, you know, stuff like that. Any Battle decks in general, you know, like Curse Temple, you have to play Rotting Storm, in my opinion anyway. Core Control, they're probably gonna be playing Purple Smoke Valley. So like, you know, in a lot of cases, Sturm Diner is still useful. It's definitely more of like a side deck card now. So it depends on like who you're facing, and when you realize they do play Nessus, then you put in the Sturm Diner. It's the same case with like the Frost Tiger here actually, which he's also only playing 1 copy. I did explain in Aaron's list. Frost Tiger is just like really good against other aggro decks. You play a Frost Tiger down with the white armor. White aggro literally cannot deal with it, especially with like a minimum BP of 8,000 as well. I mean, look at the list here. What can go over 8,000? Nothing. Kahara can go over 8,000, but it has Astro, so it doesn't matter to Frost Tiger anyway. So like, you know, if you can't manage to summon Frost Tiger, like any white aggro players, unless they also summon their own Frost Tiger, they literally cannot deal with it. And like obviously it's roughly the same cases with like all the other aggro decks. But obviously in green aggro, they can just exhaust Frost Tiger, especially since Omar here doesn't play suppression, but I suppose like they do play regain, so that still works as a defense. But yes, 1 copy of Frost Tiger, because if you put more in it, then arguably it's not an aggro deck anymore. It's more like a tempo deck, or you might even turn into control. So it goes down to how you play, but Omar here decided that 1 copy is enough. And then since we talk about Lightning Arrow already, well, I mean, actually we haven't really going deeply into it, but like let's go with Bloody Rain first, which I think is a really interesting choice. So I think for a lot of players, they probably won't even remember what is Bloody Rain. So here you are, the card. And the fact is, burst when you lose life, your opponent cannot attack with Spirit during this turn unless they remove a card from it and place it into the reserve. You may then pay this card cost to activate this flash effect, which is the select 1 spirit and gains 2000 BP. So it's literally just for the burst effect. If your spirit only has 1 core, you literally cannot attack with it. And obviously, it's not a selection effect, so purple armor also cannot prevent it. So I think this is basically just another anti-aggro too. And when by the way, and when I mean cannot attack with it, I mean like you can't just attack at the face attack effect and then like destroy the attacking spirit. You literally cannot declare an attack if the spirit only has 1 core on it. So I suppose it's just like another anti-aggro tool, just to make sure, you know, if you're facing like mirror aggro decks and like they spread too wide, then you can set down the Bloody Rain and then they cannot attack. In other cases, perhaps you know, you can also have like some spirit standing, you activate Bloody Rain, and sometimes they also still cannot attack, because when they attack, they're forced to level down their spirits. And so like if your spirits has higher BP than them, then obviously they don't want to attack. Another case is, for example, again, you got Pegacione, which obviously the effect is can only block spirits with 2 cores or less. So if you set down Bloody Rain, take a life, and now they have to strip a core with every attack. So like most of the time, they can go under 3 cores, you know, to become 2 cores or less. And in that case, Pegacione can block. Actually, surprisingly, Bloody Rain might actually be really handful in like some situations for this deck. So like definitely like a good choice to put in this deck. And then lastly, we have two copies of Lightning Arrow. Is basically to bypass some spirits. I mean, well, that's the whole point of Lightning Arrow. But like specifically, what kind of spirits to bypass? You may ask. Uh, so first of all, the purpose of Lightning Arrow in this deck is to replace Dream Bomb, um, simply because it's just a different color. So like you can kind of expect that Lightning Arrow here is more for cards that has white armor, or in some cases maybe even green armor. Basically something that like the magic cards or like the bounce effects in his deck uh, cannot work against. So in this case, basically anything with white armor or green armor, and this is where Lightning Arrow comes in handy. But I suspect like it's mainly for the white armor because obviously if he's playing Frost Tiger, then you can expect other white aggro players to be also playing Frost Tiger. And so in this case, Lightning Arrow is literally just another anti-aggro tool, really. Or maybe in some cases, if you face white control, if summon an Enterprise, you can also play Lightning Arrow because they don't have yellow armor, obviously. And then, so yeah, so this is the White Aggro list by Omar. I cannot pronounce Spanish. Omar Acuña in second place. Congratulations to him. And then, so let's move on finally to the first place list.